Welcome to the deep dive. We have a massive amount of ground to cover today.
We really do.
Today's mission is an exploration of the surprisingly dramatic, intensely consequential, and constantly evolving history of the United States Senate.
And we're basing this entirely on a comprehensive Wikipedia history of the institution.
Exactly. So if you are listening to this, you're the learner here. You probably look at the modern Senate and see this maze of complex rules, parliamentary procedures, and, well, frequent gridlock.
Right. It can look pretty dry from the outside.
But our goal today is to demystify all of that. We want to show you how a single 5-4 vote at the 1787 Constitutional Convention, the Connecticut Compromise, basically created this legislative body that would completely shape the nation.
It really proves the Senate is far more than just a boring room where bills go to die.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the wild early days of the Senate.
Yeah, the early days are fascinating.
Because the very first Congress met in 1789. They were in New York City, and they held their Senate sessions in complete secrecy.
Completely locked down.
I mean, no journalists, no public spectators allowed in the galleries, nothing.
It sounds so bizarre to us now.
Right.
But there is a reason for it. It really matters. The founders intended the Senate to be a much slower, more deliberate check on the House of Representatives.
Because the House was supposed to be the voice of the people.
Exactly. The House was reacting to the passions of the day. But the Senate, they locked the doors so they could debate without that immediate public pressure.
Wow.
And you see this culture solidify early on. Take the 1804 impeachment acquittal of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Chase.
Right, that was a huge moment.
It was. The House impeached him, basically over political differences. But the Senate acquitted him. And Aaron Burr, who was vice president at the time,
He actually presided over that trial, right?
he did. And he gave this famous farewell quote right after. He called the Senate a sanctuary, a citadel of law and order meant to resist the storms of political frenzy.
The storms of political frenzy. I love that 19th century
It
language.
was very traumatic.
But those storms were very real. Which brings us to the 1820s through the 1860s, the crucible of slavery and sectional conflict.
This is where that structural imbalance really takes center stage.
Right, because the defining feature of the Senate is equal representation. Every state gets 2 votes, regardless of population.
And that made it the ultimate battleground for the issue of slavery.
Because the North's population was just exploding at this time.
Exactly. The North easily took control of the House of Representatives because of their population size. But the Senate, that was a different story.
The Senate allowed the slave states to maintain this incredibly powerful grip on the legislative agenda.
They absolutely needed to keep a perfect balance of free and slave states to hold on to that power.
Which led to some incredibly intense moments, like the Webster-Hayne debate of 1830.
Oh, that was huge. New England pitted directly against the South.
Just massive sectional tension, and lawmakers were constantly trying to pass legislation to keep the country from falling apart. You had the Missouri Compromise of 1820.
And then the Compromise of 1850 later on.
But the tension kept building until it reached a literal boiling point. This detail is just shocking. In 1856, Senator Charles Sumner gave a speech heavily criticizing slavery.
And then a few days later,
A representative, Preston Brooks, walked right onto the Senate floor and physically assaulted Sumner,
he beat him with a metal-topped cane.
right at his desk, beaten unconscious over a speech. It just emphasizes how insanely high the stakes were.
It really does. And I want to ask, what stands out to you listening to this?
It's a great question to think about.
Because we often think of rules, like equal state representation, as just procedural math. But you have to think about how these structural rules can literally dictate the fate of millions of lives.
Yeah.
This mathematical rule pushed an entire nation towards civil war.
It's heavy, and it changes the way you look at the institution.
Definitely.
Moving forward, post-Civil War, from 1865 to 1945, we move from the Gilded Age power brokers to the era of direct democracy.
Which is a massive transition.
Because right after the Civil War, senators were still not elected by the people. They were chosen by state legislatures.
Which meant wealthy financiers and party bosses essentially ran the chamber. People like Nelson Aldrich.
The Millionaires Club.
Exactly.
But even in that super restrictive era, we see some incredible trailblazers, like Hiram Revels.
The first African-American senator.
Right, in 1870. And his seating wasn't easy. He had to survive a 48-8 vote just to take his seat because members formally objected.
And he got in.
He did, and he was followed by Blanche Bruce. Plus, in 1907, Charles Curtis became the first Native American senator.
Some really significant firsts during a very elite time.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Now, the 17th Amendment?
Yes, 1913. The 17th Amendment fundamentally changes everything. It mandated the direct popular election of senators.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, being accountable to actual voters suddenly changed the entire face of the Senate.
They actually had to campaign.
Right. And because of that, the demographics started to shift. You get the first woman elected, Hattie Caraway, in 1932.
And Dennis Chavez in 1935, the first Latino elected to a full term.
The democratization of the chamber was really underway.
But while who was in the chamber changed, the rules of debate were still wild. Let's talk about the filibuster.
The famous filibuster.
It was actually rarely used until World War I. There was this small group of senators who completely blocked a bill to arm U.S. merchant ships.
President Woodrow Wilson was furious about that.
Livid.
He called them a little group of willful men.
And that public fury led directly to the 1917 creation of the cloture rule, a way to actually end debate.
Which originally required a massive two-thirds vote to pull off.
Right. So moving into our third section here, the modern Senate, we're looking at 1945 to the present, independence, the Cold War, and civil rights.
The modern era really shows the Senate flexing its institutional muscles.
Oh, absolutely. They weren't afraid to stand up to massively popular presidents. Like in 1937, FDR tried to push his court packing plan.
And he was at the height of his popularity.
But the Senate flat out rejected it.
They protected their institutional norms. And you see that global focus shift, too, right after World War II.
Managing the Cold War.
Exactly. They ratified NATO, approved the Marshall Plan. They became heavily focused on global foreign policy.
But domestically, things got very dark in the 1950s.
The McCarthy era.
Yeah, Senator Joe McCarthy leading these massive anti-communist investigations.
He used his committee power to make these sweeping accusations, ruining lives across government and Hollywood.
But ultimately, the Senate policed its own. In 1954, they formally censured him in a 67-22 vote.
Which effectively ended his influence.
And right around that same time, you have the rise of Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ.
The master of the Senate.
He practically invented the modern majority leader role. He used it to just completely dominate the chamber.
He used every trick in the book to push through the 1957 Civil Rights Act.
And the rules kept evolving. In 1975, they lowered that cloture rule threshold from 2/3 down to 3/5.
Making it slightly easier to break a filibuster, though it's still a huge hurdle today.
Definitely. Now, looking at the modern era, it is just a joy to run through the rapid expansion of representation we've seen.
It really accelerates here.
Hiram Fong became the first Asian American senator in 1959. Edward W. Brooke in 1966.
Carol Moseley Braun became the first African-American woman elected in 1992.
Tammy Baldwin, the first openly gay senator in 2012. Catherine Cortez Masto, the first Latina in 2017.
The momentum is incredible.
And even just looking at 2025 milestones, Lisa Blunt Rochester and Angela Alsobrooks serving simultaneously. Andy Kim is the first Korean American.
It's a completely different chamber than the one in 1789.
And we should give a nod to the non-elected trailblazers, too. People like Paulette Diesel, the first female page, and Kathy Alvarez, the first female legislative clerk.
They broke massive barriers behind the scenes.
Okay, so we wrap up. I have to mention this fun fact from the text. 17 U.S. presidents used the Senate as a stepping stone.
That's a huge number.
Right. Truman, JFK, LBJ, Nixon, Obama, Biden, the list goes on.
It's the ultimate proving ground for a national profile.
So what does this all mean? We started with a secretive, elite club of men chosen by state legislatures in a locked room.
And we tracked it all the way to a transparent, directly elected body.
A body that still grapples with immense power, constant filibusters, and trying to represent a highly diverse nation.
At the end of the day, the Senate was designed by the founders to force compromise.
To slow things down.
Exactly. To slow down the passions of the day, for better or worse.
For better or worse.
And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Go for it.
The Senate was originally built to be isolated from popular opinion. They were chosen by state legislatures, yet they gave equal voting power to every single state.
Right.
But now, the 17th Amendment has subjected senators to direct democracy. Yet the massive population disparities between modern states remain equally represented.
That's a huge tension.
So does the current Senate function as the constitutional framers intended? Or has it mutated into a fundamentally different institution that is just trapped inside its original 1787 architecture?
Wow. That is an incredibly provocative thought to end on. A mutated institution trapped in its original architecture. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel a little more equipped to understand the history echoing through the halls of the Capitol today. Keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.